Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a Dark Side. In today's episode, I tell you about a woman from Epping, New Hampshire, who had dark secrets lurking beneath her seemingly serene facade. Join me as we uncover a web of manipulation, abuse, and unspeakable horrors. It's the case of Sheila LaBarre, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you of cases that turn to homicide. I am your host, Kai, and in today's episode, we're discussing a case of possible mental illness, torture, and murder. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode, as well as all of my episodes, are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder right now while you're listening so you don't miss a case. So on whatever platform you're on, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you didn't know, you can also subscribe on our Patreon so you don't have to hear intros like this one or commercials, and you'll get Kai Rants bonuses and be a sponsor of Love and Murder. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. In the meantime, though, grab your butts, grab your BJ's apple juice, murderandlove.com/BJ's, and let's get into some Love and Murder. Sheila K. Bailey was born on July 4th, 1958 in Fort Payne, Alabama. She was the youngest of 6 children, and just like the day she was born in the United States, July 4th is Independence Day, so we usually have a lot of fireworks and stuff like that. So just like the day she was born on, she was called Firecracker, and she had the personality to match. She had a very difficult, abusive upbringing because one of her sisters, herself, and her mother were sexually, physically, and verbally abused by her alcoholic father. And on top of that, as if that wasn't bad enough, he would also bring over other men to sexually assault Sheila. Now, as a teenager, Sheila dreamed of being in singing. She wanted to be a country singer. She wanted to be a model. She just had really big dreams for herself. But the main thing is she wanted to be rich. She graduated from Fort Payne High School in 1976, and in the early 1980s, she ended up going to a psychiatric facility after she attempted suicide. While in the psychiatric facility, an orderly had tried to rape her. So it's like going from bad to bad to bad to worse to bad to worse. On December 31st, 1981, when she was 23, she married 19-year-old John Baxter. After only about 6 weeks of marriage, John found out that Sheila had been locking his little girl in a closet all day long while he was away at work. So, on February 14th, 1982, he divorced her. The marriage only lasted 6 weeks. He left her, but it took him a while to get the divorce papers and everything going through. Quote, the marriage didn't last very long because as soon as the truth came out about how I was being treated, he ran off. End quote. This was a quote from John Baxter's daughter, who was grown at the time of that quote. Later on in 1982, she married again another man named Ronnie Jennings. So then, at the time, she was known as Sheila Bailey Jennings. After a while, she wanted to divorce Ronnie, but he said no. So in 1985, she said, well, I'm just going to do what I do. And she had an affair with a man named Sam Billings. And then in the spring of 1987, she moved from Fort Payne to Epping, New Hampshire. The reason why she did this was because she had answered a personal ad put out by an older gentleman, 61-year-old widower chiropractor named Wilfred LaBarre, who also went by Bill. So once she answered that ad, she went to live on his 150-acre horse farm. Bill was wealthy, as you can see. He was a doctor, he was a well-known doctor, and he was well-liked in his community. He owned one of the largest and hottest piece of real estate in the area. The reason why he put out an ad is because, he had the money, he had the property, he had the respect of the town, but he didn't have anybody to share all of this with. So when Sheila, who was 34 years younger than him, found the ad and answered him, and they seemed to hit it off, he thought he had found his person. So Sheila, when she moved in with him, she started calling herself Sheila LaBarre, even though they never actually got married. Remember, she was still married to Ronnie Jennings. Bill, on the other hand, it's not like he had never been married before. He had actually been married twice before, which ended in one divorce and one instance where his wife died. So he was kind of feeling lonely. So they lived together, unmarried, from 1987 until 2000, when he died at the age of 74 due to a heart attack. And when he died, she inherited everything. Now, his children weren't too happy about that, so they contested his will, but they ended up being told that they only had a 50-50 chance of success, and they might end up wasting all of their money, which was $50,000 up front that they would have to pay, without getting anything back. So they decided that they weren't going to move forward on contesting it. Quote, I think Sheila and Wilfred LaBarre's relationship was more tumultuous than anything else. The police department would be involved several times with domestic disputes. So let's get into some of those. On January 15th, 1995, Sheila filed an assault report with the Epping police accusing a person named Wayne Ennis of attacking her. Now, Wayne was a Jamaican citizen who she'd known for some years now. He actually worked for Dr. LaBarre and lived with them and Sheila, and Sheila would occasionally have sex with him. So she filed a restraining order and was granted a restraining order against him. And then in August 22nd, 1995, Sheila married him in York, Maine. Now what now? You filed a restraining order on the man. You're with Dr. LaBarre still. And I guess at some point in time, she divorced Ronnie Jennings, and she married the man who she filed a restraining order on. Okay. As you can imagine, with how the marriage even started, before it even started, the marriage was very abusive. Both Sheila and Wayne accused each other of abuse. And on December 28th, 1996, she filed another report saying that Wayne had beat her. She then divorced him that same December. And on April 2nd, 1997, she got a restraining order against him again, saying that he allegedly repeatedly assaulted her. After all of that mess, and remember, she's still with Dr. LaBarre, she then got a boyfriend who was 10 years younger than her, named James Brackett. And on September 25th, 1998, he charged her with assault. Then on February 15, 2000, Sheila's father died. And 11 months later, on December 2nd, 2000, that's when Dr. LaBarre died. So she was doing all of this while she was with Dr. LaBarre. All of this craziness was going on while she was with him. Poor guy. And I guess he was just going through his stuff, and I don't know, maybe he was just too old to pay attention to what was going on, and he still left everything to her instead of his children. Craziness. In 2002, Sheila then tried to run James over with her car. And in 2003, it's reported that she gouged his face and shot a gun at him. Ma'am, what is it with you and these men? Like, oh my God. In 2004, Sheila got another man to move in with her. This time it's Michael DeLodge from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Michael had struggled with addiction and homelessness. And when he found Sheila and she's saying, hey, come move into this 150-acre farm with me, of course he jumped at the opportunity. But then, eerily, no one heard from him or saw him after the fall of 2005. Now, after Dr. LaBarre died, Sheila then started looking for her next victim, love, on the phone chat lines. In February 2006, she met a man, 24-year-old man, named Kenneth Coonty Jr., and he was known as Kenny. Kenny was from Wilmington, Massachusetts, and was born in 1981, and he grew up in, I'm going to try and say this, Tewksbury, Massachusetts. Anyone from Tewksbury, Tewksbury, anyone from there, you can school me on how to say your town's name, because I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Kenny was mentally disabled and had a low IQ. He was described by others as having a, quote, childlike trust, but he had the full support of his family. It's not like they tossed him aside. His family loved him and supported him. And, he just had a really great family. So she met Kenny, and they actually had their first date on February 14th, 2006. Just couple days after they had their first date, Kenny moved in with her and came to help her work on the farm. Now, for weeks, his mother had stopped hearing from him, which is not really Kenny. He does keep in contact with his mother, with his family. He keeps in contact. So she started calling and she was getting no answer. So she immediately filed a missing persons report. In the missing persons report, she said he had disappeared with a woman who drove a black Cadillac. She said this woman who drove the black Cadillac came to pick him up and she had not heard from her son since. So officers went out to the farm to do a wellness check. When they got there on February 24th, 2006, it was around 1 p.m. and the gate was closed. So they ended up parking their car outside of the gate and then climbed through like the I don't know what you call it, rungs, I think? The partitions between the gate? I don't know. I don't know what you call it, but they climbed through the gate. Then they walked up the driveway to the house and that's when they saw Sheila. And she wouldn't open the door. She just talked to them through the window. Sergeant Sean Gallagher was one of the officers to go to the house for the wellness check. And he asked Sheila if Kenny was there. And she said, no, he's not. So he said, well, we have a report here. Someone filed a missing person report and said that he was with you. So I came out to do this wellness check and I'm asking once again, is Kenny with you? And you're telling me no, but I just want to come around the house to make sure that he's not here. So initially, Sheila said no. And then she said, well, he is here, but he was naked in the bathtub. And police were like, okay, well, tell him get some clothes on and let me see him. So without a word, she walked away from the window. So they didn't know if she was actually going to get him or she just wasn't coming back to talk to them. But she did come back with Kenneth and brought him to the door. And to the police, and what they went back and reported, Kenny looked, quote, fine. And she told them that, well, he's here of his own free will. So now you need to get off my property. Get off my property. And so they did. Now, we're going to take a pause here because this is the kind of crap that I don't understand. So, like I said, I have experience. I know someone who has mental health issues. And because of the laws, and I put that in quote, if this grown person, they see this grown person and we're saying, hey, we need to, I don't know, this person is hallucinating. We need to stop him. They will literally look you in your eye and say, this person looks fine. They are grown and they look completely normal to us. And they will let the person go off into the world while we know this person is completely in a whole other world of their own. But because they're above 18 and legal or whatever, they'll just say, that person looks fine and leave that person alone. And if you touch that person, they will charge you. It has happened. They will charge you for false imprisonment. It's the same thing going on here. This person has a childlike mind. You went to this woman's house. He appeared fine. He's probably like mentally 7 or 8. He appeared fine. So he's here of his own free will. He's like 8 in his mind. Yes, you see a grown person, but think about this woman just took an 8-year-old. Literally is what's going on. And you're just saying, well, he seems fine. And then, so we'll bid you adieu, ma'am, and then leave. Oh my God, as a parent, that must be so frustrating. So frustrating. This is the kind of bullshit I cannot take. Laws need to be fixed for situations such as this. Something needs to happen because then when these people, and I'm talking about people, for instance, with mental health, go out and do something because in their head, they're not even on this earth and maybe voices are telling them to do something. You're going to charge them as mentally competent and act like, well, they should have known. They didn't even know they were on earth. What in the frick? And then you left this dude who is like an 8-year-old in his mind in the care of this woman. And she's saying he's here of his own free will. No, he's here of your own free will, not his. He would probably rather be with his family. So they left saying he was fine. They reported to his mother that he was fine. And his mother was not fine. She was like, so there you go. She was like, she told the police he has, quote, an IQ of a 12-year-old. So yeah, you just left a 12-year-old in the care of a complete stranger who's telling you that he's fine. So she told the police he has an IQ of a 12-year-old and that he needs support. He needs more support than, look, he needs the support of a 12-year-old because he's an adult and he has the mind of a 12-year-old. So that's even more support than a 12-year-old. So she's telling them this, and they're like, well, he's legally an adult, so we can't do anything about it. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. There needs to be some laws in there where somebody with an IQ of a 12-year-old cannot be considered legally an adult. I don't know, because there would be people that would abuse that law, which I understand, which is why the law is in place in the first place. Like the psychiatric law, like back in the day, some men would put their wives in the psychiatric ward and just say, she's crazy, end of story. So we have these laws for that. I understand that, but it's been how many years? You can revise these laws with the knowledge you have now. You know this guy has a mind of a 12-year-old. Okay, you can't just take the mother's word for it, but you can get him tested or something. And then once it comes back that, yes, he has the mind of a 12-year-old, he's no longer legally an adult. If somebody has schizophrenia and this person constantly, no matter what care they get, they're constantly reverting back into hearing voices or hallucinating, you cannot say this person is legally an adult. They're not. There are some people where the medicine works, yes, and then you keep an eye on them, they're considered legally an adult. And there are some people where the medicine just doesn't work. There needs to be something. We're worrying about other stuff we shouldn't be worried about. We need to be worrying about mental health in this country also. Look, let me not go down this rabbit hole, okay? Because I'm just going to be sitting here yelling to a microphone and nothing's going to change. Let's move on. So this is what the mother had to contend with. She had nothing, there was nothing that she can do. But Sheila, on the other hand, figured that there was something that she could do. And on February 26, she made 3 phone calls to Sergeant Gallagher stating that the police had no right to be on her property. You know, screw this. Why did y'all even come here? I need to see a copy of that NCIC report that said that Kenny was missing. And if anybody comes on my property again, I will sue your ass. I will sue you for every penny that you have and even the pennies that you don't have. I will sue you. I will sue your children. I will sue your grandchildren. Even your great-grandchildren will be paying this lawsuit. Then, on March 17th, 2006, Sergeant Gallagher and another officer responded to a call from a Walmart supercenter in Epping that said there was a suspicious person acting very disruptively inside the store. So they went out, and when they got there, guess what they found? They found Sheila and Kenneth. Now, Kenneth, who they left on February 24th, 2006, was now in a freaking wheelchair. He was slumped over in the wheelchair. The officer, Sergeant Gallagher, said he looked, quote, ashen. He had cuts on his hands and his face, and one of his hands was swollen and wasn't even working properly. This is the man that you left in the care of this woman, saying that he looked fine just a month ago. Wait, actually, it's not even a month yet. Maybe 3 weeks, a little bit over 3 weeks. It's not even a month yet. And this is what he looks like now? So Sergeant Gallagher asked Sheila, what's going on here? Because I guess you couldn't ask Kenny? Because, you know, he's a grown-ass man, so you should be able to ask him and not Sheila and find out what's going on here. But anyway, because Kenny actually has the mind of a child, he asked Sheila, what's going on? And Sheila said that, Kenny got these injuries in a car accident. And then when the other officer tried to speak directly to Kenny, Sheila said, no, you're not allowed to say anything to him. Which, how are you to tell me that? He's a grown-ass man, remember? So he has rights. He should be able to speak for himself, and you can't tell me not to talk to him. So, lady, move the F aside and let me talk to the legally grown-ass man. I'm sure y'all could see how passionate I am about this specific issue where they label people as legally grown who are not. I apologize for all the cursing. I am very passionate about it. I do apologize for all the cursing. I am not going to say that I'm not going to curse in the rest of this episode. I will just try not to. But I'm pretty sure something else is going to piss me off. So back to what I was saying. So for some reason, even though he's grown, legally grown, they listen to her, who is not his A, guardian, B, mother, or anything to him that's not his wife. That's nothing. But they listen to her. They won't listen to his mom, but they listened to her and didn't try to talk to him anymore. And when they accompanied them out of the store, Sergeant Gallagher saw that Kenny was leaning on the shopping cart and, quote, not walking properly. I guess they had taken him out of the wheelchair and said, hey, can you walk by yourself, to show that he could walk, but he wasn't, quote, walking properly, which is fair because he was in a wheelchair. So they also watched Sheila help him get into the truck, and then they watched them drive away. So I actually have pictures of how Kenny looked in Walmart in my Patreon, among other pictures and other things that come with this case. So if you want any of that, I mean, you could technically just search the internet yourself and find it yourself. But if you want all the pictures that I found without you having to waste your time and search for them, then you can join us in Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. Then on March 22nd, Sheila called Sergeant Gallagher again, this time to complain that he had, quote, characterized her as a suspicious person in his report with the Walmart incident. Like, she literally got the report and said, did he just say I was a suspicious person? Let me call this dude up. Oh, and by the way, while I'm complaining to you about labeling me as a suspicious person, I want to let you know that Kenny left my house. So the next day, Kenny's mother called Sergeant Gallagher, and she said that she was calling because she called Sheila, and Sheila said that Kenny was no longer living with her. And she said, but that's not like Kenny, because if he were on his own, he wouldn't just walk out into the highway and just be like, nobody loves me. That's not her son. He would have actually called her or somebody in his family to come and get him. She also said there's also no way that he can be left on his own because he has, quote, mental deficiencies since birth. So he can't be left on his own. And he knows that. And he's never, ever done anything for me to believe that he would just stay on his own. He would always call me or someone he knows. So Sergeant Gallagher took this seriously. And between him and one of the other officers, they called Sheila repeatedly and left voice messages asking her where Kenneth was. She didn't answer, though. Quote, on March 23rd, 2006, Carolyn Lodge had called Sheila LaBarre to check on her son and found out that Kenneth was no longer at the house. Sheila believed that Kenneth had gone back to Massachusetts, end quote. At approximately 1 a.m. on March 24th, Sheila called Sergeant Gallagher. She told him, look, Kenny's gone. She called him at 1 a.m. to tell him Kenny was gone. You had literally the entire day. Anyways, she said Kenny's gone, and then she played him a tape recording over the phone of her identifying herself as the Justice of the Peace in New Hampshire and questioning Kenny about raping children. On the tape, you could hear Kenny saying, quote, yes, to Sheila's questions, and his voice was really like soft and muffled, it's described. At the end of the tape, Sergeant Gallagher heard something that sounded like throwing up. You know, when you're getting ready to throw up, oh, I'm not going to do the sound because there's some people going to be like, oh no, I can't allow, don't say it. But you know the sound I'm talking about. So he heard that sound, and that's when he then heard Sheila say, quote, stop faking that throwing up. And then he heard her say, quote, Kenneth Coonty is now faking that he's throwing up. Then, after she said that, she said to Kenny, hey, stop faking that you fainted. And then she came back to the recording and said, Kenneth Coonty is now faking that he fainted. Then, after all of that, it was some silence, and then he heard Sheila in the background, quote, crying hysterically and saying, quote, why? And then that's where the tape ended. So, of course, they were like, what the F? And did a Starsky and Hutch, ran to their car. I don't know if Starsky and Hutch, I don't even know who Starsky and Hutch is. You know what? I'm just thinking about that. When I think Starsky and Hutch, I think about people like back in the 70s movies running out to their cop car and sliding over the hood. But I don't even know if Starsky and Hutch did that. Anyways, stay on target. So they ran out to their car and booked it over to Sheila's house. They got there at 6 p.m. And even though she still maintained that Kenneth was gone, they decided they were going to take a look around. So when they got there, the gate was closed, but not locked like last time, or the many other times they went there, because, just backstory, she constantly called the police. She constantly called on domestic abuse. You could hear throughout the timeline. I said how many times she called for domestic abuse, and there were times where she said the person had left, but then the police later found out the person was still at the house. Whatever. So they were kind of used to this. So the gate was closed but not locked as many times when they went to the house. They did see that there were no lights on in the house and that all of her vehicles were in the yard, which means she was home. So they looked around, and although it was dark, they did realize that there was some illumination from somewhere. So what is that? And they went and saw a large burn pile was just smoldering in the ground. So they were like, okay, weird. So they went and knocked on the door, and no one answered. So they went back around to the fire pit, and that's when they saw that there was a burnt mattress in the front yard. Quote, in the fire, there was what appeared to be a bone. As a police officer, the sense really kicks in that something is very seriously wrong. I mean, as a non-police officer, if I saw a bone in a fire and a burnt mattress, I think something's going to kick in and tell me something's very seriously wrong too. So then they really started looking around this pile. They turned on the flashlight and they saw inside the pile what looked like a knife handle, and the blade was melted. They saw a partially burnt chair, that piece of bone, and they saw tree limb clippers. So then they looked at the bone even closely. The bone was about 3.5 inches long with a piece of fleshy material attached to it. Okay, what's going on here? So then they went back to the door and knocked several times, saying, this is the Epping police. It sounds like you're saying the effing police, but no, I'm saying the Epping, E-P-P-I-N-G. This is the Epping police. Answer the door. Open up. We want to ask you a bunch of questions. No one answered the door, so then they went back to their car. The main concern was that, is this Kenny? Was that bone Kenny? So they needed a warrant to go search the house. So he called back and they spoke with the assistant county attorney, who told them, yes, you have sufficient evidence to go conduct, quote, a well-being check. You could break down the door and go in there. You have sufficient evidence. So then they called for backup, and Officer Bradley Jardis responded to the call. Officer Jardis came packed though. He came to that house with his rifle, took it from his car, and went to the house. He took it on a, quote, administrative carry. That's what they said he called it. I'm pretty sure if I see a burning bone with some flesh stuck to it, I'm going to administrative carry too, whatever property I'm on, until I get off the property. Then I'm calling 911 because there was a bone with flesh in this pile of, I was just trying to deliver something, and there was a bone with flesh by a burning mattress in a burning pile. So yeah, maybe you want to come check that out. So now that they're all strapped up, all three officers walked back to the house. This time, Sergeant Gallagher knocked on the door while the other two officers banged on the side of the house and on the windows that are on the side of the house. Again, no one answered. So they went back to the door and Gallagher said, all right, we need to kick this door open. And they kicked it open. As they kicked it open, like at the same time they kicked it open, that's when they heard noise, and then they saw Sheila walking from the gate towards them. Quote, Sheila comes down the road and starts screaming immediately, "What are you doing?" She said she had been out shopping and she just got back home, and here you are in her house, like kicking in doors and breaking my hinges, and what's going on? Officer said, yeah, I hear all that, but where's Kenny? And she said, oh, he left days earlier. I called you and let you know that, and I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him since then. So Sergeant Gallagher said, okay, you say he's not here, so let's go inside. I'm going to go inside and check for myself that he's not here. So she said, sure, come in. I'll show you room by room that he's not here. And she literally did that. She took them room by room throughout the house. And as she's doing this, Gallagher reported that she seemed, quote, happy as she gave this tour. When they went to the basement, they found a pair of sneakers that Sheila said belonged to Kenny. And she told them that, no, you can't take them. They're Kenny's. He left them here. Maybe he'll come back for it. You can't take it. So then they said, okay. So when they walked back outside, one of the officers asked Sheila about the bone in the fire pit. And she replied that it was from a rabbit because whenever her rabbits die, she usually cremates them. So the officer said, Yeah, I've had a rabbit before, and unless this rabbit was like 5'4", this bone was too big to have come from a rabbit. So then Sheila started getting irritated, and quote, "That's when I asked her what the bone in the fire pit was from. She immediately stated, 'Well, that's a rabbit or pedophile.'" Commercial break! To give you your weekly reminder to come on over and join the Lamb Supporters Club at one of our now 3 locations, patreon.com/Love and Murder, Spotify, or Spreaker. All of the links for these are in the show notes below to make it easier for you to join and support Lamb. As an exclusive Lamb, you get intro and commercial-free episodes, so if you're an exclusive Lamb, you don't even have this break. It just went straight through the story. You also get bonus episodes like Kai Rants and your monthly bonus episodes. If you join in Patreon, you get even more options like case extras and options for even more bonus episodes, because sometimes I post videos in there that can't go out on any other platform. All of the links are in the show notes below. And remember, I get benefits and you get benefits for joining the Lamb Patreon group. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. We're all waiting for you over there. Or I could say it really creepy. We're all waiting for you over there. Speaking of another place we're all waiting for you, murderandlove.com/audiobooks. If you are an avid reader like I am, oh my God, I can't even tell you how much I love to read. But as time went by, I had children, I have, businesses, so much stuff is going on. I don't even have time to sit down and read anymore. I have a bookshelf full of books that's waiting for the day that I have time to read. In the meantime, though, you like podcasts? You like books? Let's put it together and get an audiobook. Want to hear the Bridgerton book series before the new series drops on Netflix? Look, I love Bridgerton. Oh my God, I love that series. Now's your chance to do it. The new season is coming soon, but maybe you want to find out what happens in the book that they changed up in the episodes. So binge the audiobook series of Bridgerton. But you're not into romance? I get you. I feel you. I'm really not into romance either. There are very few exceptions. I love mystery. I love mystery and I love true crime books. That is my thing. You can always find me in the mystery section of the bookstore. All you got to do is go to murderandlove.com/audiobooks. Join audiobooks today for free. You get a free 30-day trial and 3 free audiobooks just by using our link, murderandlove.com/audiobooks. And now back to the show. So Sergeant Gallagher was like, Did you just say it was from a pedophile? And she said, "Oh, no, I didn't say that. You're hearing things. You really need to get your hearing checks. I didn't say that." He said, "You literally just said it's from a rabbit or a pedophile." She said, "No, I didn't." So they said, "Okay, well, can we take it then and get it tested to see if it was from a rabbit or a pedophile?" And she said, "No, and you need to get off my property right now." So they left. However, Sergeant Gallagher was like, absolutely not. And when he went back to the precinct, he got an in-writing search warrant to search the exterior of the house. So on the morning of March 25th, they went out to search the house. They took several items, and this time she can't stop them because, look, here's your warrant. Hand you the paper, stick it to your face. I don't know where you want it, but move out of my way, ma'am. They took items that she couldn't stop them from. And then they interviewed Sheila, and she had to sign to consent to the search of her house. She had no choice. However, when they arrived, they found her kneeling in front of the burn pit, covered in ash. And this time, the bone was nowhere to be found. She did, however, hand over a .38 caliber handgun and a suicide note. Her suicide note. Quote, "We had asked her if she had any other weapons. She said no. She exposed her breast to show us she had no weapons. It was very, very strange." I ain't got no weapons. See? Nothing hiding under here either. What? That's so crazy. So after they were like, "Okay, ma'am, please cover those things up," they asked her, "What happened to Kenny? You said he left. I saw a bone in the fire pit. Bone is missing now. What happened to Kenny?" So she pointed to a small bag that was sitting on a lawn chair not far from them and said, quote, "He's in that bag." Sergeant Gallagher said, quote, "When we looked in the bag, it appeared to be full of bone fragments." What the frick, man? So now the place is a crime scene. Everybody came out now. States, major crime units, local, everybody came out. And they started searching everywhere on the property. And after flushing the septic tank, they found something crazy. A birth certificate. What is a birth certificate doing in your septic tank, ma'am? Not only that, this is not your name. This is not Kenneth's name. Who else do you think? Who do you think it was? Who do you think it was? Y'all's jaw is going to drop. The name on the birth certificate said Michael DeLodge. Do y'all remember Michael? So, of course, they took Sheila in for questioning. On March 27th, 2006, she was interviewed by Sergeant Robert Estabrook and Chief Gregory Dodge of the Epping Police Department. During the interview, she talked to them about the events of March 24th when they were at her property. She told officers that when she got home, she found the police were already there, and she said, I just let them inside my house. I gave them no problems. I just said, come on in. She said one of the officers was carrying a firearm, but she didn't know why. I'm just a little old lady. I didn't just let you in the house. Why is he carrying a weapon? But I figured it was his choice, and I let him look around. She told them that after she was living with Kenneth, he told her that he was a pedophile. He just came out and said, hey, I'm a pedophile. Quote, he confessed this to me, that he has raped numerous children. And I said, you're a pedophile. So that's the MO of pedophiles. They usually come out and say, hey, by the way, I've been living with you for 2 weeks. I just want to let you know I'm a pedophile. You're okay with that, right? In what universe has a pedophile ever admitted that they're a pedophile? Are you serious? Quote, there is no evidence and not even a sliver of an investigation against Kenneth Coonty for ever being a pedophile. So the police were like, so how about the bones we found in the fire pit at your house? And she said, quote, I don't have the answer. I'm only the one being accused. So now you're Play-Doh? So after they finished questioning her, they let her go. Dude, are you kidding me right now? I mean, how much more evidence do you need? A bag full of bones? And you let her go? So after they let her go, wanted to do more investigation. To me, a bag of bones is enough investigation. I mean, I'm going to investigate more, but I'm taking her into custody. That's enough for you to be taken into custody. But hey, I'm not a cop. So they found even more bone fragments on her property. They found more knife handles in 2 more burn pits. And so the bone fragments they sent off to the University of Maine for testing. Quote, within a matter of 4 hours, it came back that those bone fragments were indeed human. End quote. So you mean to tell me they weren't rabbits? I am shocked. Now, inside of the house, they found blood splatter all over the walls. And get this, some of the blood splatter, some of the stains were fresh. Others were old, so old, in fact, that they were covered with dust. Quote, literally, there was blood everywhere inside this home. Dude, all you had to do was go in the house when she was like, get off my property. You could have gone in the house. You could have gotten a search warrant because, look, somebody is complaining that their son is missing. But I guess you have to stay within the confines of the law. You can't just go into people's house willy-nilly. So I can't fault them there. Additionally, they found nearly 1,000 hours of audio recordings of conversations between Sheila, between Bill, between Kenneth and other men. So it was Sheila and Will, Sheila and Kenneth, Sheila and whoever. On I don't want to say all. On most of the recordings, you can hear Sheila coercing these men to confess their crimes of child abuse and pedophilia. On one tape, they heard Sheila questioning Kenneth about his, quote, fictional sex crimes. And he answered, and you could tell he was like really uncomfortable with how he answered. He answered, quote, yes. And then after they heard him say yes, they heard him vomiting and crying and then saying, why? Yeah, does this sound like somebody who committed these acts? Are you kidding me? So they went off to question her neighbors, people who see them on a daily basis. And they told them that Sheila was often seen in the company of different men. After Bill died, they saw, she was always with some other dude. And actually, in reality, if you go back and check the evidence, she was with other men while he was still alive. She was just always with other men. Quote, neighbors had called about odd behavior, seeing men go down to the farm and then would see them being dropped off by Sheila at the end of the driveway, sometimes with bruises and markings on their body. And nobody went to check this out? The neighbors were calling it in. What's going on here? Among one of the people that the neighbors mentioned was 37-year-old Michael Delage. Remember, he hasn't been seen since, 2005? Yeah, I just went up in my notes. He hadn't been seen since the fall of 2005. So investigators found recordings from even Michael, like I said, and on the recordings, he's accusing his mother of abuse. Quote, if it wasn't for Sheila, I wouldn't know half the things I know. I'm pretty sure he was just saying this to stop whatever she was doing to him. Because it's not like she's a psychologist. It's not like she pulled up repressed memories. There's no way. She was saying this so that she would stop whatever she was doing to him. So then they called Michael's mother to find out, hey, have you seen Michael? Is he there with you? This is when they found out that Michael hadn't been heard from in some years. And his mother told the police that she was worried that Sheila was trying to kill him. They also told them that in February of 2005, they received a letter from Sheila's address from Michael, or supposedly from Michael, telling them not to contact them, that they were just being a loving couple and we don't want to hear from y'all anymore. So when they did try to contact him next, Sheila answered the phone and said, oh, he left. Does that sound familiar to you? Everybody leaves? Every time they want to get in contact with their loved one, they left? Seriously? So on March 31st, 2006, finally, an arrest warrant was issued for Sheila LaBarre on charges of first-degree murder. However, since you let her walk out of the place, even though she had a bag of bones sitting there and she said stuff that like that's either a rabbit or a pedophile, they had to search for her because what? Shockingly, she left town. She basically had withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash from her bank and booked it out of town. I'm shocked. I thought she was going to sit there and wait to be arrested. So they found her by April 4th. It wasn't a long search, and they arrested her. Basically, they found her after receiving a tip from someone in Revere, Massachusetts, saying that there's this woman, like, she doesn't look exactly like y'all are saying she looks, but she looks similar. Because, why? Because you let her go. She skipped town, took out thousands of dollars in cash because you forgot she's rich, changed her appearance, she cut her hair, she dyed it red, and went to Revere, Massachusetts. Like, anybody could have seen that coming. While they're searching for her, they're still looking on this farm because remember how big it is. Guess what they found? They found 3 human toes, and after forensics, they found out that neither one of these toes belonged to Kenny or Michael. Who the bloody... What? How many more? On April 25th, 2006, the court ruled that there was probable cause to support the charge of first-degree murder for Kenneth. Now, before her trial started, Sheila started asking to suppress the physical evidence that was seized from her property. Before the trial even started, she's already trying to suppress evidence. Why? She said that police entered her house on both February 24th and March 24th and violated her state and federal constitutional rights to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures because they entered without a warrant. Woman, you had a bag of bones sitting on the front of your lawn. You also had a burn pit with a bone in it that had flesh on it. And you said, and I quote, it's either a pedophile or it's either a rabbit or a pedophile. Are you serious? Your constitutional rights were violated? I'm pretty sure the people you murdered, because there's 3 toes that doesn't even belong to these other 2 people that they're saying that you murdered. I'm pretty sure these people had constitutional rights. Who in the bloody F cares about your rights, ma'am? I'm just wondering. And her lawyer, the balls, her lawyer submitted that paperwork. Can you imagine? One of these days, that interview is coming. Maybe they don't answer me because they don't want me to interview them. Maybe they know that I'm going to ask these questions and I'm not going to listen to the bullshit. Maybe that's why I'm not getting responses for my request to interview a lawyer who will support somebody who's blatantly guilty at heinous crimes such as this one. Or maybe they know they can just sue me. Maybe I'll say one wrong thing and they'll sue the shit out of me. I don't know. One of the two. So after a 2-day evidentiary hearing, the court said no. They said that they went on your property legally, quote, police neither entered nor searched the defendant's home on February 24th. The police did not violate the defendant's constitutional rights. And the court also found that the community caretaking and emergency aid doctrines justified the March 24th entry. So, ma'am, you shut down and you get ready for your trial. The court also said that, quote, the defendant freely, knowingly, and voluntarily consented to the search of her home. Ma'am, shut up. So, on September 19th, 2006, she was formally indicted on one count of first-degree murder for the death of Kenneth Contee. However, on February 12th, 2008, Sheila decided to change her plea. She entered a non-negotiative plea of not guilty by reason of insanity and then filed a notice of insanity defense. Are you kidding me? At the same time, she waived indictment and pled not guilty by reason of insanity to first-degree murder for the death of Michael Delage. Ma'am, this sounds like you're getting ahead of the case. Does this sound like an insane person to you? Somebody who is using chess moves to win a case? This sounds like insanity to you? Because it doesn't to me. It sounds like manipulation and somebody who knows exactly what the F they're doing. But good try. I applaud you. Good try. On May 5th, 2008, jury selection began, and on May 13th, 2008, that's when the trial started. Now, before opening statements, the jury was taken to see some of these locations where all of this stuff happened. So they went to the Walmart and they went to the farm. They were able to walk through the farm and see what was going on. Prosecutors wanted them to see also the proximity from the store to the farm. Now, while on the farm, people watched Sheila and she literally just sat there and watched the jury walk around. However, when they went back to the bus to go to the next site, she threw her head back and started crying serial killer tears. Because we're so sad for you. Now, for the defense, what they were trying to do was to show that Sheila suffered from both a mental disease and the murders were the product of the illness. Good luck with that. I guess she's starting to try and act crazy now. Her lawyers argued that she was a delusional woman who believed every man in her life was a pedophile and who saw herself as an avenger, basically. But the prosecution countered that she was, quote, crude, manipulative, cruel, and vindictive. And I agree with all 4 of those adjectives. They said she violently lashed out at men she dated and she is not mentally ill. Dr. Albert, I don't know how to say this name. Dr. Albert, Druktienis, I think, Drukteinis, who was the state's forensic pathologist, testified that he thought in his professional, I'm a doctor, opinion, Sheila was sane. And he said this based on reviewing more than 8,000 pages in the case files. He interviewed Sheila 3 times, totaling that he spent more than 12 hours with her. He said she has an obsession with pedophilia, she has intense anger issues, and she's paranoid, which put all this together are signs of mood and personality disorders that are severe enough to cause her to be psychotic at times, but that's still not enough evidence to show that she has a mental illness which would cause her to commit the crimes that she committed. Quote, she answered questions well. She tried to explain evidence away that made her look bad. This is not what someone sees over many hours in a person who is psychotic. End quote. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I said. This does not sound like an insane person. It sounds like a manipulative person who knows exactly what they're doing. So then they played this interview that was between Sheila and the doctor. I'm not going to try and say his last name. They played this in court. And Sheila said that she was driven to kill Michael so she admitted to killing him because he was, quote, hurting and killing her animals. Then they played another tape, and in this tape, she said that Kenneth's death, quote, was an accident and that she cremated him not to cover up a crime, but to keep his mother from ever seeing the body again. Well, if it wasn't to cover up a crime when the cops came there, then you should have said, yeah, I killed him and I cremated him. That is his bone right there. So if you didn't do it to cover up a crime, why were you still covering up a crime? In addition to those recordings, jurors also heard the thousands of hours of recordings from Sheila and the men that she was interrogating. And then Malcolm Rogers, who's a forensic psychologist, and he decided to testify for the defense, came and said basically those tapes, quote, illustrated that LaBarre either has a schizophrenic affect disorder or a delusional disorder, which in turn caused her to mistakenly believe that men were pedophiles and to kill them, end quote. He also went back and said that, as she said, quote, LaBarre believes that she once died of a drug overdose, but she was sent back to Earth with special powers, which explains the grandiose manner in which she speaks on the tapes, end quote. So then they brought the police officers to the stand and was like, why didn't y'all do something before? Why did you not see that, all of this was really weird? And they said that she didn't act any different. At around Kenny's death, she didn't act any different from normal. She was always calling them and complaining. She would even write and complain. Literally, they had a term for her. She was, quote, a regular. They always had to go out to her farm and fix whatever that she said was going around. Somebody hit her, somebody disappeared, somebody this, somebody that. So he said there was literally no difference in her demeanor when all this was going on. She always acted like this. So also the defense wanted to question Sergeant Gallagher, and they asked him about Sheila switching from topic to topic when talking to him and when she was writing her letters. They also wanted to focus on March 25th when they were talking to her before they got the search warrant to search her home. How was she responded to them? Basically, he said that she didn't respond to the questions. She didn't respond directly to the questions that would be asked. She would literally bring up other topics or just try and sway the conversation away from the question that they asked. And then the defense was like, right. She would often lose focus of what's being asked of her, right? She was losing focus. So this is what the defense is trying to push towards. And the officer was like, nah, I more felt like she was trying to manipulate the conversation and take control of the conversation and not answer our questions. That's what I more felt. Quote, the way I would characterize it is she was nervous and she was changing what she would say to me during a conversation, appearing to me like she was trying to throw the interview off. Every time I tried to ask a question relevant to the disappearance of Kenneth County, it was my opinion that Miss LaBarre was trying to thwart the questions or manipulate the interview. That quote came from Officer Wallace. So then the defense was like, okay. But you have to agree that the way she tried to dispose evidence by burning bones, burning mattresses, and everything like that right there on her front door was kind of crazy, right? Even her changing her appearance, was changing it from brown or whatever to bright red. That's kind of crazy. So this shows you that she's insane, right? To which I personally, if I was a judge, would be like, how in the frick do you call? Okay. So you're telling me that the fact that she dyed her hair, but because she didn't dye it from blonde to black or from blonde to brown or something like that, but a bright red, that's insanity? Really? Or that she was stupid enough to burn these things right outside her front door, that's insanity? Not just making dumb decisions? Please sit down. I don't know where you got your license from, but sit down. Now, funny thing is, since she had already admitted that the state could prove her guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder before she decided to change her plea to not guilty by reason of insanity, because she had already did that, the jury's only task during this trial, which was a 5-week trial, was trying to figure out if she was insane at the time of the murder in 2005 of Michael, and if she was insane at the time of the murder in 2006 of Kenneth. That was their only task. They had nothing else to do, because she had already said, yeah, you could prove me guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. And the state said, all right, bet. We proved it. So now, jury, you have to just find out if she was insane in 2005 and 2006. That's it, just at those times. On June 20th, 2009, the jury returned its verdict after about 13 hours of deliberations. The jury said she was sane and guilty of both of the charges. Family members of the victims who were in the court burst into applause. Quote, "This is for my son." That's what Kenneth's mother said. One of her defense lawyers, Jeffrey Denner, said that he plans to file an appeal. "File away, sir." Quote, "It continues to be our belief that she's deeply crazy and insane. We also understand there's a huge amount of emotion in this case that clouds that issue." Are you serious? There's not a huge amount of emotion. I mean, there is a huge amount of emotion in this case. There's also common freaking sense that you, sir, seem to lack. So he filed his little appeal. On the appeal, he said the defendant does not challenge the police entry onto her property on February 24th. That's funny, because initially, before the trial began, you were challenging that. Now you're not. He said that during the trial, however, the trial court erred in finding the officer's actions on March 24th were justified under either the community caretaking or emergency aid exceptions to the warrant. Okay, so this, quote, insane person is going through semantics now? She's so crazy that she's picking up on little, are you serious? We're supposed to believe she's insane? She also challenges the findings that she voluntarily consented to the officer's entries into her home, and basically just a bunch of little semantics about them searching her house. This was the appeal. Really? This is supposed to be an insane person who doesn't understand reality from fiction, but she can pick up all these little things here and there. She knew to do this before trial started. After trial, she said, okay, I don't challenge it. However, if you look at this word here, it says heretofore instead of but. And if you look at this word here, it says thus instead of thusly. So this is out. We can't go. Are you serious? Anyway, the court said, no. Sit your ass in jail. You get life without the possibility of parole. F you, ma'am. That's what I would say if I was a judge. And what Kenny's mother said was, quote, "Sheila LaBarre took advantage of my son, who was kind, caring, gentle young man who could not socially defend himself. She was a master of evil who deliberately tortured him. Sheila LaBarre stripped my son of all his dignity and self-worth, and in the end, she murdered him. She then did what I do not even blame her for doing. She accused the Epping Police Department of negligence. Basically, when they saw him in the Walmart, how he was bruised, burned, in a wheelchair, not his hand not working properly, can't even walk, they did no further investigation. If he was in a car accident, they literally could have just looked that up and found out if there was a car accident in their location. They did not do that. They allowed her to leave with him. They allowed her to tell them that they can't talk to him, even though, according to them, he was legally an adult. They listened to her. They did not follow up. And so she said, F you, I'm suing you. And she brought up a lawsuit against the 2 police officers who had seen him in the store. However, her lawsuit was rejected in 2010, which was very sad because I completely agree with her lawsuit. Also, I want y'all to note after we wrap up today that when she was arrested, there was also speculation that she'd killed Bill. And of course, she said she didn't. But I mean, you said you didn't do anything with Kenneth and Michael either. So based on what are we believing you, ma'am? And that is the episode of Serial Killer Sheila, and I don't even want to say LaBarre because she wasn't even married to that man, and she just decided to take his name, and I'm pretty sure that his children do not want her to have his name. So I am not going to sully his name anymore by calling her by his last name. So that is the case of Sheila Bailey, the serial killer who killed all these poor men and was literally allowed to do it for years. What did y'all think about that case? You heard all what I had to say throughout the case because I have nothing else to add. That was an insane case. The ins and outs. Oh my God. I want to hear from you. And because I want to hear from you, and most of y'all like doing polls, even though in the last couple episodes, y'all haven't been answering the polls. What gives? Let me know. Seriously, give me some commentary. Let me know if y'all like the polls or if you don't like the polls. Should I stop doing the polls? What's going on? What's going on? I'm trying to work with you here. So what I'm going to do is put out a poll today on if you were a juror, would you have said that she was insane? Based on all the evidence, based on everything you heard here, based on they went on the farm, they looked around. So I gave you an audio visual of going on the farm and looking around. Based on all of that, if you were a juror, would you have found her insane, not guilty by way of insanity, or would you have found her guilty and sentenced her to life in prison? So that is your poll question. You can get the poll question on Spotify, but if you don't want to answer the poll question, or if you like listening to this on any other platform, you could literally just answer in the comments below. You could say not guilty or guilty. That's great too. And speaking of polls, let me go through your poll questions and your comments from the last episode, which was Canada's youngest multiple murderer, and it was the case of Jasmine Richardson. So in the poll, the question was, do you think the blame should 100% be on Jeremy, or was it correct to give Jasmine part of the blame? Because remember, I had read comments online that people were blaming Jeremy and saying that he manipulated Jasmine and everything like that. So that was the question. And 100% of y'all said Jasmine is to blame too, which I agree with. And then your comments, Latoya Lynette says, quote, I think Jasmine got off too easy. I feel like she set the plan in motion and should have had a longer sentence. Then again, she has to live the rest of her life knowing she killed her family. Yes, she does have to live the rest of her life knowing she killed her family, but she's also living the rest of her life in anonymity and out in freedom. So there's that. But I do agree with you, Latoya. So that is all I have for you. If you want your comments heard on air, please go ahead and leave your comments below. Or you could just go ahead and answer the poll. And before I go, don't forget that an easy and free way to help Lamb out is by simply sharing this episode. So just go ahead and hit that share button right now as I'm talking. You can cut me off if you want. As I'm talking, hit the share button and share to your friends, share to your mom, share to your husband, share to your Instagram, share to your TikTok, share. And as always, I end each episode by reminding you that it's, say it from the heart now, all love and no murder, y'all. Bye. Hey, Lamb, before you go, I know I ask this every episode, but if you can do me a huge favor and leave me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on, that will help out the show greatly. So by sharing, that's a free way to help Lamb. And by leaving a 5-star review, that's another way to help Lamb without giving me any time. It takes like 1 minute, maybe 1 minute of your life. So you can leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. And I want to thank you in advance for doing it. Go ahead, hit 5-star right now. If it asks you for something in the description, just say Kai's awesome, because we know I'm awesome. Bye.
Hi guys, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Lisa.
And we are the hosts of The Book of the Dead, a true crime podcast based out of New Jersey, where we tell you about the most obscure cases that you may have never heard of. So join us in the Book of the Dead library for another chapter of the Book of the Dead wherever you get your podcasts. Bye, guys.